There have been times throughout my life where I've wanted to learn more about something, but haven't had those resources readily available for me. Most recently, I've been thinking about taking up the language of Japanese. This would help with translations and with my investigative work for my videos. Maybe you've had similar struggles. If you feel like your experience is holding you back from pursuing the career you want, then I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University. SNHU has one of the largest accredited non-profit online degree offerings in the country. Let me tell you about their game development program. You can learn to create realistic dynamic gameplay experiences. You'll learn computer programming languages like C++, use Unreal Engine to construct games for various platforms, learn 3D modeling and texturing, and courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience will teach you how to research, develop, and contribute to advances and trends within the field of game programming. SNHU is radically affordable. Their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. And SNHU was voted one of the country's most innovative universities by US News and World Report. Go to snhu.edu/Andre3Start, also linked in my description, to see what the current average salary for game development is and request free info about the program. When you request this info, a real person will hop on a call and discuss how the program can benefit you personally. It only takes one click to find your calling. Thanks to SNHU for sponsoring today's video.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about the possibility of Nintendo GameCube games coming to Nintendo Switch Online. Could this actually be happening? Possibly. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before going forward, let me remind you all that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So the reason everyone's talking about GameCube coming to Nintendo Switch Online all of a sudden is because a couple of days ago, Joe Rajalt on Twitter put out a discovery they made on some recent trademarks that were filed in the UK. As you can see here, this tweet happened on January 27th, but if you look at the actual imagery here, we have 3 different filings here, 2 of which on the 23rd of January, another on the 25th. And what you can see here is that all this imagery is definitely for the Nintendo GameCube controller. And so, clearly, Nintendo is filing a trademark for the Nintendo GameCube controller. So, that's where everyone's sort of jumping to the conclusion that this must mean Nintendo GameCube is coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And I'll tell you just straight up, this might actually mean literally that. We may be getting GameCube on NSO to some capacity in the future. But it also might not be that, and there's a few reasons why. Firstly, let's just talk about the timing situation here. Because what this situation reminds me a little bit of is when we all got excited about Nintendo 64 Mini. So if we go back in time to the year 2017, Nintendo filed a trademark for the N64 controller. This was being reported back in the summer of 2017. But then fast forward a little over a year later, the trademark was actually registered and published on August 30th, 2018. And so people thought, oh, we're finally going to get N64 Classic. Because if you think back to around that time, this was shortly after the release of the Super Nintendo Classic and also the NES Classic, the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it was on the minds of many that we could maybe see something like this. But this is not what actually happened. What happened is that fast forward a few years, September 2021, more than 3.5 years later after this trademark was officially published, we got the announcement for Nintendo 64 games coming to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. It was made a part of a higher paid tier for Switch Online. So it wasn't what people expected, and it happened years later. And so, looking at this trademark here for Nintendo GameCube, it may very well be the case that at some point down the road, we will see GameCube added to Nintendo's online service in some sort of paid feature. To me, that does make a fair bit of sense. But there's a few huge takeaways I have from this. It could be years from now, and years from now might mean it's not going to be for Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch, come March of 2024, will be at its 7-year anniversary. I'm not so sure it's a reasonable expectation to think that they would be adding more paid online tiers to Switch Online for Nintendo Switch 1. Nintendo Switch 2, that's a whole other conversation. That's more conceivable. But there's other issues that go beyond this. One of which being the Nintendo Switch controllers. They don't have analog triggers. Nintendo GameCube did. And there were a lot of GameCube games that took advantage of those analog triggers. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but what I am saying is that it is a hurdle. But it shouldn't be too much of a hurdle because we already have a variety of GameCube games on Nintendo Switch. Several Resident Evil games, the Baten Kaitos games, Tales of Symphonia, Paper Mario 1000 Year Door is on the way, Metroid Prime Remastered is already here, Super Mario Sunshine is a part of 3D All-Stars, and so getting it to work is conceivable. They made it work for Super Mario Sunshine, which definitely took advantage of the analog triggers. But as I just brought up, there's a whole bunch of releases on the Switch that are repurposings of Nintendo GameCube games, be it remasters or remakes, or some type of enhanced collection. And so Nintendo and other game companies are making money off of these releases. So if Nintendo were to introduce GameCube for Nintendo Switch Online, it would take away from this large pool of GameCube games that they can remaster. But that's what we're talking about now. 3.5 years from now, or almost 4 years from now, when we're well into Nintendo Switch 2, on a console that may or may not have analog triggers, it's more conceivable that we could see GameCube added as a paid premium for Nintendo Online. But for Switch 2, not Switch 1. Switch 1, as we're getting, and we'll probably get more of, they're going to rely on these GameCube remasters to really push and bolster the Switch lineup as we transition into the next generation. We have rumors for F-Zero, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are still looming, and then there's also Metroid Prime 2 as well. Notice that I'm not mentioning Metroid Prime 3 because that's the Nintendo Wii game. And actually bringing up Metroid Prime 3 I think is a solid segue, because there are other games that are being remastered and remade for Nintendo Switch that aren't from the Nintendo GameCube era. We have 3DS games being remastered, DS games being remastered, Nintendo Wii U games being remastered, Wii games being remastered. So it's not just straight GameCube. But GameCube has been quite the treasure trove. And so I don't think we're going to be seeing this GameCube on Nintendo Switch Online anytime soon. But once Nintendo has dipped into this treasure trove for a few years, they can rely on other libraries to have more remasters and remakes, and then they can add it for Switch 2 later into the next generation. We've seen this happen. Actually, going back to Super Mario 3D All-Stars, they included a remastered version of Mario 64, but we still got Mario 64 for Nintendo Switch Online later. So we could see remasters for F-Zero and Paper Mario 1000 Year Door and Metroid Prime 2. We already have Metroid Prime 1 and also Pikmin 1 and 2. And then 3 years from now, Nintendo may introduce GameCube to Nintendo Switch Online. And those same games may be made available, but they won't be the remade, remastered versions. They'll be the upscaled versions for Nintendo Online. They may not call it Nintendo Switch Online anymore because it would then be for Switch 2, and we're not even sure what that's actually going to be called. But whatever their online service has their name for, that's what I think this is likely for, this GameCube trademark. Not now. So I think it makes more sense to maybe pull back or hype a bit here and not jump to the conclusion that this is imminent, because there's no part of history that suggests that we should expect an announcement, say for example, in the highly believed February Direct that would be coming a few weeks from now. That's not what's going to happen. Probably. You never know. It's always possible, but I would say it's very unlikely. Now, in the spirit of entertaining possibilities though, maybe this trademark doesn't even have to do with adding GameCube games to Nintendo Online at any point in the future. What if it has to do with just including like a GameCube controller for some sort of re-release? We see Nintendo make the GameCube controller relevant again in the modern day thanks to Smash Bros. Could there be something related to Smash Bros. Coming in the not so distant future? This is possible. Or maybe similar to how they do release these Switch versions of these retro controllers from Nintendo whenever they have this new tier added, maybe they'll do something like that. And it could be for when they add GameCube to Nintendo Online a few years from now. But also, what if they just simply introduce this as an option just for the sake of some other type of GameCube games that are being made available? Like, what if there is, for example, NF0 remaster that is on the way, as is rumored, and because that game heavily relies on analog triggers, they make GameCube controllers more readily available. They'll probably still have to have a way so you can still enjoy it with just the basic Switch controllers, but still, options are always nice. These are possibilities, and it may be the case that Nintendo is filing this trademark and we'll never actually see anything GameCube related like this see the light of day anytime soon within the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years or what have you. But I'm going to err on the side of optimism here because we saw this literally happen for N64 and other systems, that this trademark will mean something sometime down the road. Nintendo knows we love these GameCube games, that's why they're remastering, remaking a whole bunch of them. So I don't think we're done with seeing GameCube related announcements, but when it comes to a large selection of them given to us at the same time, I think we have to wait a few years. But assuming this is to be the case, that GameCube will come to Nintendo Online a few years from now for Switch 2, what might we expect? Because we are getting a whole bunch of GameCube games being remastered. Sure, we are, but I would expect to see those same games that haven't remastered, the classics, still make it over to Nintendo Online. But there's also a whole bunch that we may never see get remastered. One example, Wave Race Blue Storm. That game may not be popular enough for Nintendo to think it's a valid game to bring back, and that's a game that I would love to see make a comeback. Or maybe Mario Kart Double Dash. Mario Kart Double Dash, Nintendo rarely remasters games like that, but I would love to see it for Nintendo Online. Not only because it would be fun to play that again on a console upscaled into HD, but because Nintendo Online enables these games with online play. And so it would be very interesting to see GameCube Online, because GameCube was a system that was hampered by the lack of any extensive online features, and so it would be almost poetic to see some of these GameCube games actually have an online mode. Playing Double Dash Online, Melee Online would be fantastic. But I'll even go a step further in the speculation here on how things might change or better benefit GameCube games. Switch 2 is going to be a more powerful console than Switch 1. There's a lot of things we've heard about the system maybe being able to do. Running games at higher resolutions, better performance, instant loading, but also HDR support and ray tracing as well. So what if a lot of these GameCube games for GameCube Online 3-4 years from now on Switch 2, when they bring this up, they're like, hey, here's Wave Race Blue Storm with ray tracing and HDR support in widescreen 4K with online play. That would be very tantalizing. And so maybe that's expecting a bit too much, but still, it'll be nice to see when the day does come, if it comes. And based off this trademark, I think it will happen. We'll just have to be patient. But what do you all think? Do you think we will eventually see GameCube come to Nintendo Online? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.